Hi, welcome to Balatro Multiplayer Numbers. I'm your host, Sir Katz, and this is about the frequencies and scoring of the various jokers in the Balatro Multiplayer mod. So first, a quick little background about me. I've played a lot of competitive card games. I have a background in Magic the Gathering, and specifically, I've always been fascinated by data in card games. So in Magic the Gathering, there's websites that collect all of the data on online Magic the Gathering games and post it for everyone to use. And this show is inspired by 17 Lands and Sierkiewicz's Magic Numbers show, which is where he just analyzes the data from Magic the Gathering games. So similarly, I'm going to be analyzing data from Balatro multiplayer games. So first, I should start with some data limitations. How am I getting this data, and what are some of the limits from it? So the data I'm getting is from Virtualized sending me game logs, and in the logs, there are two different types of logs. There's two different types. There are logs where the multiplayer server is communicating to a client's game, and there's logs where a client is communicating to a server. The short summary is I can only read the client to server logs. Server to client logs do not contain a client's UUID. They only contain the server sending something to a client. So there's no way to match that to which client. Client to server, though, I can match to a specific client, and that's what allows me to collect the logs and sort them into specific games and specific users. So server to client logs, some examples are lobby options. When you join someone's lobby and you request the lobby options to display on your screen, that is a server to client communication because the server is sending you those lobby options. Two others of the most important ones are win game and lose game. These ones are sent when you win a game or when you lose a game. And this means that I'm unable to tell if someone has won or lost a multiplayer game simply by looking at their UUID specific logs. Some client to server specific logs are username. This contains your username and your mod hash, the mods that you're playing with, and create lobby. The create lobby action contains the lobby options. So if you're hosting a lobby and you select lobby options, you send those lobby options to a server. I can tell what lobby options the host has set, but as previously stated, I cannot tell what lobby options the person who joins a lobby has. Only the person who creates a lobby. So what this means is for data analysis, I can only look at the data from lobby hosts, because if I were to look at the logs of people joining lobbies, I can't determine if they are playing 16 life games or 4 life games, or if they're playing with multiplayer jokers or if they're not playing with multiplayer jokers. So all of the data in this slideshow is taken from lobby hosts. If you joined a lobby, that data is ineligible to be looked at because it does not contain the lobby options. Some other client to server communications are play hand. This tells the server how much your hand scored. So this is for when you're in a PvP blind. You can see how much your opponent has scored. That's because of the play hand action. And then there is also the receive end game jokers action. This is your game sending your end game jokers to the server. So when a game ends, you see your opponent's jokers. The receive end game jokers is them sending those jokers to the server. So I can tell what jokers someone ended the game with. I cannot tell what jokers they had previous to the end of the game, only at the exact instant of the game ending. So these are the lobby options that I have filtered for. These are just the standard multiplayer lobby options. Comeback money on life loss, don't get blind rewards on round loss, 4 lives, multiplayer cards on, same seeds, same decks, etc., etc. Your classic multiplayer settings. So remember, only the host's logs have the lobby options. So if you join a lobby, your logs do not have these lobby options. So I cannot tell what your lobby options are. I'm just restating that to drive the point home. Okay, so let's get started with the actual interesting data, starting with the frequency data. How often do jokers show up in people's endgame jokers list? So remember, these jokers, or all of this data is from the end of a game. So at the end of a game, the 12th most common joker someone would have is Mime. And in 11,000 games, Mime has been present in someone's end game jokers 943 times. Just beating out Mime in 11th place is Acrobat. I'm gonna talk about what each card is, and then talk about some of the reasonings why, and some of my reasonings behind why I think these jokers deserve or do not deserve to be this high on the rankings. Mime, I think, deserves to be this high. It's a very powerful joker. It allows you to re-trigger steal cards. It gives you extra money from your gold cards, and it gives you extra planets from your planet seals. Acrobat is just a very easy X3 molt to use. It's probably the easiest X3 molt in the game, maybe beaten by Card Sharp, because Card Sharp is repeatable, but even then, Acrobat is, you don't have to do any setup besides playing it on your last hand. Okay, moving on to the top 10. Number 10 is Baron. Baron is the 10th most common joker in all of Balatro multiplayer. It appears in just about 1 out of every 12 games, 1 out of every 11 games, and it does beat out Mime. Mime appears about 100 times less, or not 100 times, 100 instances less. So one interesting comment about this is I personally take Mime over Baron. Mime is an uncommon joker, Baron is a rare joker, and if you think about how they function, Baron gives 1.5x for each king, Mime gives 2.25x for each steal. Because if you have Mime, you're getting the original steal and the Mime steal. So in order for Baron to score you the same amount of X-Molt as Mime, you need to have specifically steal kings. Mime works off of any steal card, and Mime works off of any planet seal, and Mime works off of any gold card. So personally, I think that people are taking Baron a bit too high and Mime a bit too low. I would say Mime should be in the top 10 and Baron should not. And I'll talk about if the data supports this in a later section. You can skip ahead to that. I doubt I will put the timestamp in because I do not know how to edit videos. Okay, moving on to the 9th most common joker, appearing in 1,086 games, Card Sharp. Recall earlier I talked about Acrobat. Acrobat is a very powerful X3 molt, and so is Card Sharp. One interesting comment is I personally value Acrobat over Card Sharp for most builds. Obviously for a Baron Mime build, Card Sharp is extremely powerful because it's X3 molt on every hand. But if you're playing a Flush 5 build, a re-triggers build, you really want to be playing your big 5-card hands, and those are much harder to play twice. In order to play a Flush 5 twice, you basically need 10 of the same card, and that's very difficult to come by, because you need a lot of deaths, you need a lot of strengths, and a lot of suit fixing. So I think that Card Sharp is a little overvalued, but ultimately, this is a pretty small sample size as far as everything goes. So it may just be that Acrobat is taken a bit higher than Card Sharp, but it has just shown up in less games. What is this? 8? Number 8th most common Joker, just barely beating out Card Sharp. Ancient Joker. Makes sense. Ancient Joker is extremely consistent, 1.5x for every card. You have your wild cards, you have your suit-changing tarot cards. It can be a very, very consistent form of retriggerable X-Mold, and is certainly one of the most powerful rare Jokers in the game. Number 7, the 7th most common Joker, appearing 1,200 times, Smiley Face. It makes sense. Smiley Face is a common Joker, so far we've seen rare, uncommon, rare, which is pretty surprising for the most common Jokers. But up in the remaining half, we'll see a lot more common Jokers. And Smiley Face is one of those. It's a, all things considered, very powerful common Joker. It can give plus 25 molt with no re-triggers, and if you have a Seltzer or a Socken Buskin, it can give 50 or even 75 base molt, which is a good amount for a common, and is certainly a very powerful effect. Number 6, Bloodstone. It makes sense. Bloodstone is an uncommon, so even though I would put it as worse than Ancient Joker, it is simply just much more common. It appears in more games, and it is a very powerful Joker, so it is taken in most games it appears in. It appears in just about a tenth of all multiplayer games, and I mean, that makes sense. It's a very powerful Joker. I'm not going to harp on too much about it. It's very powerful, potentially up to like 10x, 20x per hand is very powerful effect. And then Socken Buskin, very powerful re-trigger Joker. You want to be playing face cards anyway, and Socken Buskin is one of the best, if not the best, re-trigger Jokers. Number 3 and 4 are your copy Jokers, Brainstorm and Blueprint. It makes sense that Blueprint appears more often than Brainstorm because it is a little better. So if you have a Brainstorm and you have a Blueprint, you would want to copy the Brainstorm. So for example, if you have a Onk in the shop and you have both Blueprint and Brainstorm, you might want to sell your Brainstorm to Onk your Blueprint, because that will be better than having one of each. Having 2 Blueprints is better than one of each. And then number 1 and 2, very close to each other. I'll give you 0 guesses. It's Photo Chad. Who would have guessed? Photograph, extremely powerful, up to basically 8 times molt at a common. And Hanging Chad re-triggers, re-triggers are the meta, and Hanging Chad is a powerful re-trigger Joker at common. It makes sense that both of these are the top cards. I would have been surprised if it was anything but these 2 Jokers as the most common Jokers in a completed game build. So let's move on and talk about the least common Jokers. What are the Jokers that people take the least often and hold till the end of the game the least often? Number 10, the 10th least appearing Joker, appearing in roughly 1 out of every 1,000 game end Jokers. 1 out of every 500 game end Jokers is... Sorry, I just yawned. It is Riffraff. Riffraff, it makes sense. When the game ends, you really want to have a powerful build, and Riffraff doesn't do anything. Riffraff makes you Jokers. It's good in the early game, but really falls off towards the mid and late game. Then it's Rough Gem. Rough Gem makes sense. It's an Econ Joker, and it doesn't synergize well with your Bloodstones of the world, right? So you'll see a lot of similar Econ Jokers down here. The next is Madness. It makes sense that Madness doesn't appear that high. Madness is hard to use. It doesn't give that powerful of an effect when you do use it, and it basically ruins your entire build. If you acquire Madness in the earliest ante possible, you can basically get it up to like X9 max, and even then, that can very easily be beaten by like a Acrobat and a Blackboard. And Madness has the very strong downside of ruining your other Jokers. You can't run a consistent re-trigger build if you're also running Madness. Then its superposition, like I said earlier, value generators are not going to appear very highly on the end game list because, again, these are jokers you want uh, at the end of the game. These are your final jokers. Uh, so something like superposition does not deal well in being in a final joker list. And then it's Stone Joker up next. Or no, this is Marble Joker. Sorry. Marble Joker adds a stone card to your deck. You don't really want that effect unless you're running a Joker that cares about having a large deck or having adding cards to your deck. And this Joker's not very powerful in that effect. Next up, it's Pizza. It makes sense that Pizza appears very infrequently. Pizza really only works with a Yorick or some seals, the tarot seals. Um, and even then, it usually benefits your opponent just as much as it benefits you because they didn't have to buy Pizza, whereas you did, and they still get to use the discards. So it makes sense that Pizza is very low on this list. And then Seance, again, like Superposition, these value generation cards fall off very quickly towards the later half of the game. And this one is very hard to build around, especially when you want to be playing flush fives. It's very difficult to get straight flushes. And then it's Stone Joker. In order to have Stone Joker, you need stone cards in your deck, and you also need to want the plus 75 chips. It's not going to give many chips even. 75 is with like 3 stone cards in deck, I believe. And you're not going to be taking those towers that often. Towers are really great if you're running an idle build, but if you're running an idle build, you don't want a Stone Joker. If you're running any build, you don't want a Stone Joker. Stone Joker is just not very good. And then the second least common Joker is Cola. It makes sense. Cola only does something if you sell it, so I don't know why 15 people have held it in their end game Jokers list. And then last up, the least common Joker in all of Balatro multiplayer is Glass Joker. It makes sense. Justice, the Glass Tarot card, is banned. So the only way you can get Glass in your deck is through standard packs or spectral packs. And even then, I believe in the most recent version of multiplayer, there's a bug that prevents you from getting Glass altogether. So that means that in order to have Glass Joker in your Joker list, you need to both be running Glass, have seen a Glass Joker, have taken a Glass Joker, and have that Glass Joker in your final build. All of which are very uncommon. So Glass Joker shows up barely, only 2 times in over 10,000 games. It is your least appearing Joker. One very important thing about these stats that I forgot to talk about, all of these are from multiplayer version 0.2.0 to 0.2.2. So those versions. Next up, let's talk about some deck-specific frequencies, starting with Abandoned Deck. Number 10, Trio. It makes sense that Trio appears in Abandoned Deck. Abandoned Deck incentivizes playing 5 of a kind, 4 of a kind, 3 of a kind, full houses much easier than any other deck, except maybe Erratic Deck, and even then that's erratic. So Abandoned Deck, it makes sense that Trio is one of the more common appearing jokers. And then it's Card Sharp. Card Sharp is a good X3 mult joker. I won't harp on it too much. Abandoned Deck uses it well if you're playing these full house type builds. And then it's Dusk. Dusk is a powerful retrigger, a powerful retriggering joker, so it makes sense that it appears. And then we have the Family. Family is the Trio except better, because if you're running the Trio, why wouldn't you be playing 5 of kinds anyway? And if you're running the Family, you are playing those 5 of kinds, it's getting that X4 mult. And X4 is very good. A consistent X4 mult is one of the best things in the game. Next, Ancient Joker. Like I said earlier, Ancient Joker, one of the best jokers in the game. Even on a deck like Abandoned Deck, or especially on a deck like Abandoned Deck, where you can fix for your Ancient Joker much more easily. If you get an Ancient Joker early, you can very easily discard for those flushes. You can very easily make a flush 5 of wild cards. Ancient Joker on Abandoned deck makes sense to be picked very highly. Next, Acrobat. Acrobat, like I said earlier, I would have anticipated it being over Card Sharp in the overall rankings, but on Abandoned deck, it is above Card Sharp. Then Bloodstone. Bloodstone, it's good. I'm not going to talk about it. And then you have Brainstorm Blueprint. Brainstorm Blueprint will be appearing as the top jokers in most every deck. I don't think there's a single deck where they don't make the top 10, and there's only 1 or 2 decks where they don't make the top 5 or the top 4. And then number 1, Chad. Keep in mind this is Abandoned deck, which is why we see no photograph. In every other deck, Photo Chad takes the number 1 and the number 2. And actually earlier, if you recall, Chad was the second, Chad was taken slightly more than Photograph in every game. And that's likely because of Abandoned deck. People rarely play Photograph on Abandoned deck, but they do play Chad often on Abandoned deck. Next, Anaglyph. We're moving in alphabetical order if you couldn't tell. Mime. Mime is good. It's very high on every deck. It's 12th overall. And on Anaglyph, you might get those juggle tags. You might get some tarot skips. So it makes sense that Mime might be a little higher here because it might be a little easier to get those steals or to get the hand size that Mime wants. Next up, Smiley Face. Smiley Face is a very good overall joker. It gives good base mold. And then it's Baron. Baron may be higher on Anaglyph deck for, like I said previously, easier access to the juggle tag. And then Ancient Joker, Bloodstone, Sock and Buskin, Blueprint Brainstorm, Sock and Chad, Photo and Chad. You'll notice throughout the rest of these that this list of jokers, mine less so, these 9 jokers are very common. There are many other decks where these appear because a lot of decks play very similarly. Anaglyph deck is surprisingly similar to red deck, which is surprisingly similar to blue deck. Right, they're all base decks. Not many decks actually change the core function of the game. Next up, black deck. Black deck, you have 6 joker slots, so expect to see jokers that synergize with having more jokers on here. So we have Ancient Joker, Acrobat. This is, I think, the lowest appearance of Brainstorm in any deck. It appears 8th in black deck, which is very surprising. And then it's Abstract Joker. I think that people are taking this too high. I know on black deck you have the extra Joker slot, so Abstract Joker is giving plus 18 molt, but that's still not very much when you compare it to even like a Fortune Teller. Fortune Teller at the end of the game will be giving like plus 30 molt. Abstract Joker, I believe, is a good early pickup sometimes for just getting by rounds in one hand, but I don't think it should ever be in your final build. And then Sock and Buskin, Bloodstone, Blueprint, Smiley Face. Smiley Face appearing very high on the black deck, likely because in your retrigger builds, are very usually Bloodstone, a Blueprint or 2, a Sock and Buskin, a Photo, and a Chad. And on black deck, Smiley Face can just slot in there in that extra Joker slot. Whereas it's a little bit harder to find those other retrigger jokers. It's a bit harder to find a second Sock or a second Chad or Photograph. And those are the top 2 for black deck, Chad and Photograph. Who would have guessed? Next up, blue deck. Blue deck, you have the extra hand. It is a very basic deck. This is the top 10. I'm not going to really talk about it because it is basically the same as how you would expect the top 10 jokers to be. You've got Baron in number 10 because some games you end up with a Baron Mime build, and then everything else is retriggers. Checkered deck, you get easier access to flush and flush houses, and you can fix your deck a bit easier. And we see that in, I forget what this joker's called. I know is a Constellation, but this one gives plus molt for how many times you play a poker hand. So on checkered deck, you can imagine you're playing a lot of flushes, so this joker will be giving a good amount of plus molt if you play a flush. I still don't think that it's very good. It sort of pushes you away from the two meta builds, which are Mime and Baron and Retriggers, because it gives a flat base molt after both of those have done their thing, right? Retrigger jokers, in your final build, you're going to end up ideally with like X 300, X 1000 molt, and the plus 30 from this joker is not going to do much. Other than that, it's a very basic deck. You expect what you expect. Card Sharp appears pretty high here, which makes sense. It's a good uncommon joker, and on checkered deck, you can pretty easily play multiple flushes. Erratic deck. Erratic deck behaves actually very similarly to your normal, like your red and your blue decks, just because erratic deck averages out to be a normal deck, right? But an interesting thing, family appears very highly in erratic deck, likely because in a lot of erratic seeds, you'll end up with 8 or 5 or 6 or 7 of one specific rank. So a card like the family can give a pretty consistent X4 on erratic deck. I'm not going to talk about erratic deck much more. It's a very basic top 10 other than family. Ghost deck. Ghost deck is, I believe, the most played deck. I haven't been paying too much attention to however many games each deck has been playing, but Ghost deck is played very often. And Ghost deck gives easy access to your spectral cards. So expect to see jokers that work well with spectral cards. That is to say, your Retriggers and your Barons, because the best spectral cards to get is your red seals, and the best builds to benefit are Retriggers and Barons. So Ghost behaves actually surprisingly similar to your normal deck, even though it behaves very differently in that you have access to Terras. Or not to Terras, to Spectrals. Green deck you have no interest, but other than that, it behaves very similar to every other deck. Not having any interest actually rarely affects your late game builds because you're usually running a value generating joker, or you just don't need value generation because you already have your 5 scoring jokers, and to take a value generation joker would only hurt your score to a degree to where it is not worth it to take. After green, we have magic. Magic starts you with some early fools, and those early fools can really help you to kickstart your economy. If you see an early hermit or a early temperance, you can pretty quickly get up to $40 on the magic deck and snowball your interest and your money generation jokers from there. So magic, it still behaves pretty similarly to every other deck, except you see Card Sharp on here because likely Magic deck allows you to fix your deck a little bit easier than most other decks. So a card like Card Sharp, where you want to fix your deck to allow for playing the same hand multiple times, you can do that a little bit easier on Magic deck compared to Red deck or Blue deck. Next, Nebula. Nebula, I believe, has the least amount of games. Everyone hates Nebula, mostly just because of the 1 Terra slot. I hate Nebula. I do not like playing Nebula deck because of the 1 Terra slot. So in Nebula deck, the really only shocking thing is Conjoined Joker. This is the only deck where Conjoined Joker makes the top 10, but Conjoined Joker is, I believe, a top 20 appearing Joker overall. Nebula deck, it is a bit harder to deck fix because of the limited Terra slots. So something like Conjoined Joker, which gives flat X-Molt, no matter how your deck is fixed, is a pretty powerful Joker on the Nebula deck. Next, Painted. Painted deck, you have 4 Joker slots, but plus 2 cards in hand. You can see your normal Retrigger Jokers, but also Shoot the Moon and Mime. Shoot the Moon, this is the only appearance Shoot the Moon makes in the top 10. I think that I take Shoot the Moon a little bit higher than most other players. and I think I take Mime a little bit higher than most other players, but it is good to see that people recognize the power of Shoot the Moon and Mime on Painted Deck. Other than that, everything is very standard. You still have on Painted Deck your retrigger meta because it doesn't matter that you have one less Joker slot because every other build is harmed by that -1 Joker slot, except for Mime, Shoot the Moon, Baron. Those ones, that build is not as impacted by the limited Joker slots as retriggers, so it appears a bit higher. Next up, Plasma Deck. Plasma Deck squares your score, which means it plays basically the exact same as everything else, except some Jokers, like Arrowhead, appear a bit more often in Plasma Deck. Plasma Deck was played a surprising amount of time. I know a lot of people like to hate on Plasma Deck, but Plasma Deck was still played nearly 3 times as much as Painted Deck. Painted Deck was played just about 300, Plasma just about 800. Plasma Deck is played a good amount. So anyway, Arrowhead, number 9. I thought that was a bit surprising. You can see here that it appears more often than Bloodstone, but that is not really that meaningful on a sample size as small as 810, especially when the difference is only 5 times. I personally take Bloodstone higher than Arrowhead, but Arrowhead is definitely some good early game scoring, and it's not very difficult to just not pivot out of Arrowhead. Another shocking Joker in Plasma Deck is Blue Joker. Blue Joker is a good Joker on the Plasma Deck. It on its own gives around 2,000 to 2,500 chips, or 2,000 to 2,500 score. So on Plasma Deck, that can very easily get you by the early game antes. But keep in mind, these stats are end game Jokers. These are not Jokers in the game. These are Jokers you have in your build at the exact instant the game ends. Blue Joker should not be appearing here. As the game goes on, you want to remove cards from your deck to fix it, and Blue Joker is negatively impacted by that. And as the game goes on, you want more than plus 50 chips, because at the end of the game, you're going to want to discard down to get to your Steel and 5 of Kinds, which will not allow you to keep that many cards in deck. So Blue Joker will not be giving that many chips at the end of a game. So if you're keeping Blue Joker around until the end of a game on Plasma Deck, I believe you are doing something wrong. Another interesting thing about Plasma Deck is Scary Face. Scary Face appears very high on Plasma Deck. It makes sense. It is essentially a strictly better Blue Joker. And it is easier to work with than Arrowhead because Scary Face works with Sock and Buskin. Scary Face works with Bloodstone, whereas Arrowhead does not work with Bloodstone, unless you're running wild cards, of course. But Scary Face is, because of that, in my opinion, a bit more powerful than Arrowhead on the Plasma Deck. And then number 1 and 2, Photo Chad. Interesting, Chad appears a bit higher on the Plasma Deck than Photograph. It's usually very even between the two, but on Plasma Deck, Photograph falls off a little bit. And this is likely because Photograph is a bit more negatively impacted by the way Plasma Deck works, right? If you have Chad and Arrowhead, Chad is giving you plus 100 chips, which is plus on its own plus 2,500 molt, or plus 2,500 score. So it makes sense that Chad appears a bit higher than Photograph on Plasma Deck. Next, Red Deck. Red Deck, you have your extra discard. It doesn't change the game all too often, but again, a Joker shocking to appear on here is Abstract Joker. I would not have expected Abstract Joker to make any top 10, much less Red Deck's top 10. I think that if you're running Abstract Joker on Red Deck as a card in your final build, you are doing something wrong. Next, Yellow Deck. Yellow Deck behaves exactly like how you would expect a normal deck to, right? The only thing that yellow deck impacts is the start of the game, and towards the end of the game, yellow deck behaves basically identically to your other decks, like erratic deck. So this yellow deck behaves quite similarly to every other deck. Then lastly, Zodiac deck. Zodiac deck, you have your Overstock voucher to start with. So you would expect to see cards that care a bit more about fixing, like Mime and Baron. Mime and Baron you have to fix for a bit more than Retrigger Jokers because you want Steel and you want Steel Kings. So it makes sense that these two Jokers are a bit higher on Zodiac deck than most other decks. But still, Zodiac deck behaves basically identically to other decks in that retriggers are the meta. Retriggers are the meta on every deck except maybe Abandoned deck. Abandoned deck, retriggers might not be the meta, but even still, retriggers are extremely powerful on Abandoned deck. And I only say might not because Sock and Buskin is not that usable on Abandoned deck. Next, let's talk about the most popular two Joker combos. What I mean by this is at the end of a multiplayer game, if you are holding two Jokers or multiple Jokers at the same time, what two Jokers appear in the same build the most often? The fifth most common is Chad and Bloodstone. It makes sense. Chad is a common, good common, and Bloodstone is arguably the best uncommon. It makes sense for both of these to appear 549 times out of all games. And then it is Blueprint and Photograph. Again, Blueprint is one of the rare Jokers that you want to pick up, and Photograph is a common Joker. Number 3, number 2, and number 1 are just different permutations of the Photograph, Chad, Sock and Buskin combination. These three Jokers are the most common appearing Jokers overall, and they appear in a lot of builds. Photo Chad especially. Photo Chad appears over 1,000 times. It appears in over 1/10 of every multiplayer game. It is very, 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 very common. See, we know that Chad has already been nerfed in multiplayer. Maybe Chad deserves another nerf. Maybe Photograph should only give X 1.5. Who am I to say? But these are the most common Joker combos. But what about Joker combos that do not contain re-trigger Jokers? What about a combo that does not contain any Chad, any Sock and Buskin? Well, the most common re-triggerless Joker combos are these ones. You see, the most common Joker combo that does not contain a re-trigger Joker is Dice and Bloodstone at number 16. 15 two-Joker combos that are more common contain re-trigger Jokers, except, honorable mention, number 13, Blueprint Brainstorm. I didn't include that in this list because it doesn't mean anything in terms of data. These two Jokers just sort of represent the mean Joker. They represent the average Joker. So saying that these two Jokers are the most common re-triggerless Joker combo does not make sense because most often one of these will be copying a re-trigger Joker. So you can tell from this list, re-triggers are still very, very powerful. Even the most common Joker combos that do not contain a re-trigger Joker still contain only Jokers that benefit from re-triggers. There are no Jokers in here that give flat molt or flat X molt. I wanted to add those, but I did not feel like scrolling down that far on the list of Joker combos. What are the most common 3 Joker combos? Well, let's start by revealing one card from each. You have Sock and Buskin, Blueprint, Bloodstone, Smiley Face, and Brainstorm, all very powerful Jokers, and Photo Chad. Photo Chad is pervasive in how much it appears. It appears in, I believe, the top 6 3 Joker combos. You have to go very far down in order to not see Photo Chad at all. What about 4 Joker combos? Again, there's a pattern. I've revealed 1 card from each here, and it is Photo Chad Sock, Photo Chad Sock, Photo Chad Sock, Photo Chad Sock. And then the number 5, it is Photo Sock, but replace Chad with Dusk, which I found a bit shocking. I didn't think Dusk would be this high. Anyway, moving on from frequency data, let's talk about chip data. But first, we need to talk about what this chip data means. So remember earlier I talked about how I cannot determine a Joker's win rate from the logs. I can determine how much it scores on median and on average. But for this data, we're using the median because, as you can imagine, Balatro scores get very, very, very high. So interpreting the average does not really mean anything because one person scoring E28 while having a negative showman does not mean showman scores on average E24, right? So we're using the median. And the median score for all Jokers is 587,000, which means if a Joker scores at median above 587,000, like Photograph and Sock and Buskin, then it increases your score. And if a Joker scores below the median, like Raised Fist or Madness, then it decreases your score. So using this, we can tell if a Joker scores more than the median of about 580,000, it is good, and if it scores less, it is bad. So let's talk about the overall top 10 highest scoring Jokers. At number 10, it is the family, scoring 2.2 million chips on average. It makes sense, right? If we think about it, the median is 580,000, and if we multiply that number by 4, we get roughly 2.2 million. So it makes sense that family is right here. If you're playing family, you're scoring a lot. Family X4 mult is very powerful, so it scores a lot. Number 9, Dice. Oops All Sixes is the 9th most scoring Joker in all of Balatro multiplayer. But don't be misled by this. Don't just pick up Dice because, I say the data says it scores high. Dice, I believe, only scores high because of Dice and Bloodstone. Think about what other Joker combos that work with Dice that score a lot. There's your Lucky Cat. Lucky Cat can work with Dice to give a high base X mult, but still, that is nowhere near as powerful as Lucky Bloodstone. So I believe that Dice being at number 9 is really a stand-in for Bloodstone being a high-scoring Joker. Bloodstone does not make the top 10, but Dice does, because if you're playing Dice in a Bloodstone build, you are scoring more than if you were playing just Bloodstone without Dice. Next up after Oops is Mime. Recall earlier how when I was talking about the frequency data, I said that Mime appears less often than Baron. Mime scores more than Baron on median. Baron does not make the top 10, but Mime does. I believe this is because Mime works off of any steel card, whereas Baron does not. So maybe if you see Mime, maybe take it. Mime is the 8th most scoring Joker in all of Balatro multiplayer. Next, Blueprint. I'm not going to talk about Blueprint. It is Blueprint. It makes sense why it is on here. Next, Canio. Canio is the number 6 most scoring Joker. Of course, it is legendary, so there is not as much data on Canio as there is on other Jokers, but Canio is very powerful. It can give a pretty easy X10 mult, but the problem with Canio is that it does not work well with your Sock and Buskins of the world. When you're playing a retrigger build, you really want your retriggering cards to be face cards, and Canio does not synergize with that because Canio wants you to destroy those face cards. Appearing after Canio is Brainstorm. Here's a question. Why does Brainstorm score on median 500,000 chips more than Blueprint? It is because of likely random chance. Blueprint is obviously better than Brainstorm. It can copy any joker, whereas Brainstorm can only copy the leftmost. So it is simply probably just chance. There's only about 11,000 games in this data set. So until we get like 100,000, the data is not going to be as reliable as I personally would enjoy. And that can lead to some interesting phenomena like this, where a objectively worse joker scores on median higher. Number 4, Yorick. Yorick is the number 4 most scoring joker in all of Balatro multiplayer. It's a legendary, and it gives a lot of X-Mult. But Yorick still surprised me that it scored 3 million chips on median, because Yorick, if you get Yorick late, it doesn't really do anything. Though I guess if you get Yorick late, you're not going to run it, right? These are jokers that appear in end of game builds, and you're not going to run Yorick at the end of the game if you only see it 2 antes earlier. Same with Canio, most likely. Number 3, it is it's Idle. You knew Idle was going to be on this list. Idle scores a boatload. Idle here scores 4 million on median. So what this means is, hey, maybe you see a pack with Order and Idle. Certainly Order is a more consistent form of scoring, but if you see it early enough and you believe that in your ability to fix your deck, pick up that Idle. Idle scores so much. It is the 3rd most scoring joker, and it is really one of the only ways to contend with the top 2 best jokers. Ancient Joker. Ancient Joker is the 2nd best joker in Balatro multiplayer. It is, if you imagine it, it is simply more consistent Bloodstone. It is simply more consistent Idle. It is simply good. It's with retriggers, it can very easily give X100. It can very easily give X200. With wildcards, it is guaranteed. You can get flush 5s with it, and it's a bit easier to hit than than Idle if you don't fix your deck correctly, because it is always a 1 in 4 chance of hitting. So it is very powerful. If you see it, you should probably pick it up over most anything else. Maybe even over one of the copy jokers. It does score more on median. I'm not saying anything, but I think it is very powerful. But anyway, the best joker in Balatro multiplayer, not even close. It is Triboulet. Triboulet scores on median nearly 200 million chips. So what this means is if you pick up a Triboulet and you run it until the end of the game, you will on median score around 200 million chips. It is a very, very powerful joker. You can think of it as an Idle that always hits, as an Ancient Joker that gives double, that gives nearly a little less than double what Ancient Joker does. You can think of it as a Bloodstone that is consistent and gives more mults. Triboulet is easily the best card in the game. It is not close. If you see a Triboulet, you take it. And even if it's late game and you're not running a retrigger build, you still probably should take it and just run a Triboulet backup plan, because your opponent for sure sees it if you see it late, because everyone always opens your Tarot and Spectral packs. And if your opponent gets Triboulet up and running and you do not, it is very, very bad for you. Okay, so let's talk about some more stuff with scores. Except there's a problem. Triboulet scores so much that if I were to look at the most common 2 joker pairs and how much they score, or the most scoring 2 joker pairs, they would all be Triboulet and something. Triboulet and Basemall card scores more than Bloodstone dice on median, simply because of Triboulet. Triboulet is that powerful. So let's not talk about the most scoring joker pairs. Let's just talk about some interesting combos. such as PhotoChad. How much does PhotoChad score on median when you have both of them? It scores about 2 million. PhotoChad scores together about 4 times the median. So you can tell from that PhotoChad is very good. Some other combos I want to talk about: Bloodstone and Dice. Together they score 20 million chips on median. I forgot to look up what Bloodstone does on its own, but it is nowhere near 20 million. Them together, I mean, you can imagine with, let's say, one retrigger Joker, that would be 10 Bloodstone procs, and Dice gives you 5 more on average. So Dice with Bloodstone is scoring a good amount more than just Bloodstone. And then Mime Baron, this is the last 2 Joker combo I want to touch on. These two together score 46 million. So I think that people are probably taking Mime and Baron a little low. It's a very powerful combo. I mean, Bloodstone Dice is one of the best re-trigger combos, especially because they're both uncommon. But if you see that Baron, you might want to pick it up and just try and get that Mime. If you see that Mime, you might want to pick it up and try and get that Baron. Again, Mime on its own is a very high scoring Joker. Baron on its own is a very good Joker. It is also very high scoring. Together they score 46 million on median. One thing that I see a lot of people talking about in the Discord is, what is the highest score someone has ever gotten? And I would like to preface this with a restatement of how earlier I stated that we can only get data from the lobby host. And because of that, I know that this is wrong, but according to the dataset, this is the highest score ever. 10E29 on Plasma Deck with this build. You're going to think of it 3 idols, 2 sock and buskin. So you're getting, what is that, 3 times 5 times 3, you're getting about 45, 2 to the 45, which is, I mean, a lot of score. An interesting thing about this build is you'll notice there are no scoring jokers other than idol. So if this person's idol did not hit, they would have just lost. But no, this is the highest score I have on record. As for how I know it's wrong, it's because I know personally I have seen scores higher than this. Let's talk about the credits. Because this is the end of the presentation. This is the highest score ever. I'm going to do another one sometime, but first, let's talk about the credits. Local Thunk, the game, and the card art. Virtualized, the multiplayer, and the server, and the logs. Virtualized was very kind to send me all this data, and the multiplayer staff team helped me with basically brainstorming ideas for what data analysis I should do. Another thing, Math is Fun, creator of the Cryptid mod, helped with some of these visualizations. Like this, I did not know how to go into the game state and edit it to look like this. Math is Fun told me how to do that, so huge props to them. And then, in addition, there's this link. Previously, I used the locked card art to hide some stuff until I talked about it. That's from here. I accidentally used a high definition render instead of the one in the actual game, and I'm too lazy to go back and change it. This is the link to the website where I found that. It is licensed under Creative Commons, so shout out to them. And again, thank you Virtualized for lending me this data. Thank you for making multiplayer. And thank you to Local Thunk and the folks at PlayStack for making and publishing this crazy game. Okay. I don't know about you, but I like data. Maybe you like data. Where's the data? How do you find it? I don't know if Virtualized wants me to post a link to the logs. If he sees this and says it's fine, then I'll just update the description with a download link to the logs. But until then, or if not, this QR code should take you to a Google Drive with all of the data from that I used to create this presentation. What are some stuff that I want to do in the future with this data? I want to look at the amount spent per shop per ante. When you spend money in the shop, at the end of the round, it sends that to the server because of jokers like Penny Pincher. So that is a client-to-server interaction, and I can tell how much in a game you spend in each shop. So I want to figure that out and correlate that to how much you're scoring. And other than that, I'm not too sure. There's a lot of things you can do with this data. I encourage you to look into it. It's very interesting. Okay, done with the presentation. Now I'm going to take you to this QR code. I'm going to show you around in the Google Drive. So this is the base Google Drive. There's the Joker combos. This is the data that I used. In here, let's say I want to look at the most frequent overall build. What is the most common full game build? So this full, what this means is at the end of a game, what jokers do you have? And if you had those, then it adds that to this and how many times it appears overall. So you can tell only one person had at the end of a game exactly Arrowhead, Juggler, Lusty Joker, Sock and Buskin, Throwback, To-Do List. Why you would have those jokers, I don't know, but it's only appeared once. So what's the most common Joker build overall? The most common group of jokers to have at the end of a game? It's Madness. Yeah, I mean, it's not very surprising that it's Madness. Madness appears 9 times. 9 people have ended a game with only Madness. And then 34 people have ended a game with nothing. Probably either from selling all their jokers or something. But discounting Madness, the most common is Bloodstone, Chad, Oops, Photograph, Sock and Buskin. And I mean, you can look through here. It's a lot of retriggers. Retriggers are very common. There's a bit of a meta. So let's look at the median chips data. And let's check out let's call it Zodiac. What is the worst scoring pair of jokers on Zodiac? It is Magnet and Taxes. And so you can tell these ones are all probably from the same person. One person probably at the end of a game had Magnet, Taxes, Constellation, and Seeing Double, and scored this much. So what is the most common? What is the best scoring duo on Zodiac? Sock and Buskin Triboulet. Oh, and the second best is Mime and Mime. That's funny. And then the third folder is Chips and Frequencies. This folder is the score of stuff and how frequent it appears combined. So we can see here, Triboulet has been seen in 304 games, and it scores on median this much. Scary Face has been seen in 796 games, and it scores on median this much. Vagabond My Goat has been seen in 188 games, and scores on median about little less than 500,000, which makes sense, right? The median score is 580,000. Vagabond scores below that because Vagabond is not a scoring joker. Vagabond, you really want to sell out of before the end of a game. So that's the Google Drive. You'll notice each folder has a versions tab. I only have the data from these versions so far. I might update it in the future with new versions, but until then, that's all you have. So yeah, that's the data. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk. Again, thanks to these people, and thank you for listening to my TED Talk. I don't know, I'll maybe do one of these again.